Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am the Dungeon Minister, and this is the Nerd Council of Doom. You will find to my that direction. You will find the most august Dungeon Delver, Mr. Bill Sylvie, and down that way you will find the most Reverend Yan Zhao, and we are the Nerd Council of Doom. Welcome, gentlemen. Good to see you today.
Good to see you, Padre.
Good afternoon to my venerated and inscrutable comrades.
Ooh, I like being inscrutable. No one's ever scruted me before.
Someone
will should try it
to scrut you shortly. But anyway,
so we are assembled as we do every month. We are assembled to discuss those matters that are deep and naughty, and maybe naughty as well, and nerdy in nature. And I think we can probably agree that the hottest take to come across anyone's computer in the last week or so has been the absolutely fabulous miniature that's coming out from WizKids of, the iconic figure of the fighter from the Red Box, the first of the Beckme books. The long established lore, of course, that this is a woman attacking the dragon.
Right. Yes.
Anyhow,
but yeah. How do we really know how that person identifies?
Well, I'm going to say the fact that it was in the 1980s, the early 1980s. I'm going to say probably not. Well, how do we know, though? Maybe we could go and ask some sort of authoritative source. If only somebody alive today was around then and knew.
Indeed. So this comes to us hot off the keyboard of Larry Elmore, fantasy artist. Now, if you're out there in internet lands and you don't know who Larry Elmore is, Larry is one of the preeminent Dungeons and Dragons artists of the latter half of first edition AD&D and on in through really until the end of second edition. He is an incredibly talented artist. He's just a swell guy, just based on the few interactions that I've had with him. Vaughn's late. Vaughn, you're fired. But anyway, Larry Elmore holds forth an opinion that you wouldn't think would be too controversial. He states flat out, it's a man. Gary didn't know what he wanted. All he wanted was something simple that would jump out at you. He wanted a male warrior. If it was a woman, you'd know it, for I'm pretty famous for painting women. There was never a question in all these years about the male warrior. No one thought it was a female warrior. Whoever thought it was a female warrior is quite crazy and do not know what they're talking about. This is stupid. I painted it. I should know.
I want to know what time of night it was when Larry wrote that. Yes. I don't disagree with the sentiments entirely, but it's like you have the feeling that there was at least a couple of cans of beer involved in that post.
The real question is, can we be sure?
I think,
if only we had more evidence, right?
Yeah, really.
We talked about this a little bit on the live stream on my channel on Wednesday night, and my co-host over there, in addition to being a D&D nerd, is a fitness coach, and he had a lot to say about the physical form. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I don't really have the knowledge of physiology and health and that sort of thing to follow up or even encapsulate what Kyle had to say about it. But suffice to say, yeah, that's a dude. And I can't believe that there's any question. There's nothing wrong with it being a dude. We're not taking anything away from anyone by saying, yes, we agree with what Larry Elmore had to say about it, that this is a man and no one thought it was a female warrior.
Yeah, but it also it suggests that there's no really good female warriors, so you've got to co-opt. It's not at all the case. I think you rattled off a list of utterly kick-ass female warriors from the D&D lore.
Mhm.
That any of those would be fabulous to have as a miniature, but it just so it suggests, or it seems to imply that well, we don't have any women to draw from, so we'll grab this guy and repurpose him. It's like, no.
Yeah, we'll just bolt a couple of parts onto this, onto something that, again, the artist has stated unequivocally is a male figure, and just say, well, that's a female. And it absolutely, as you say, Dungeon Minister, it completely pushes aside, Alina, Morgan. Drelsna, gosh,
Goldberry, for heaven's sake.
Goldberry, right? Thank you. We've got I'm drawing a complete blank on her. She's a devil queen from Monster Manual 2. Why can't I remember her name? But there's the fact remains that there are so many iconic women from first edition, from basic. It is utterly baffling. Thank you, Vaughn Glacia. It is utterly baffling to me as to why they would go off into this incredible niche and do something that they had to have known. They had to have known. I defy them to bring me the people who looked at this and said, yeah, that's a woman.
Well, yeah, it would be akin to saying, the great male hero Alina, who gave his life to save the nameless hero of the first adventure in the Beckby books. Although if they made an Alina, so Vaughn says they should make a mini of Alina, and there's a little dispute over whether that's a good idea or not happening here. If they made an Alina miniature, I'd buy like 10 of them. First day.
And I wouldn't have minded. I wouldn't have even cared. I thought it would have been a great idea if they had said, hey, we're doing an alternate. Here's a female warrior and here's a male warrior as the original.
Yeah.
That could be fun. And I said before, I've got the Hero Quest. I got the Hero Quest reissue when it came out a few years ago. And there is an entire backer level that I supported that has all of the iconic characters from Hero Quest as women. There's a woman dwarf, woman barbarian, and so on. And I thought that was really cool. This is, hey, if you want to, I want to be a barbarian. Okay. Boy or girl barbarian, oh, great. We've got a choice, right? If they had said, yeah, and here's an alternate pose, I'd be like, oh, that's cool. But they're not. They presented it like they cracked some code. Like it was always a mystery, but we know now who that is.
Yeah. The presentation.
It was never a mystery, ever. And Larry explains it right there. So,
dude,
I'm just going to say, objectively, if you think it's okay that miniature's woman, you are objectively wrong. That is artistic vandalism.
Well, and like I said, you release alternate versions. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Release minis of the fabulous female warrior characters that are from the era. But it was just an odd choice. It was just such an odd choice.
I mean, to me, the better question is, did they know? Did they care? Because if you look into a lot of people who are making these things, they don't care about the characters who were around back then. They don't want to look into the lore, put any of that in there. They're just like, okay, what's an iconic picture? Boom, this one. It's a woman. See, we did a good thing.
Right.
That's all the thinking that goes into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it. I think that I think there's some rightness to what you're saying, Yang. But I'm sorry. Again, given the huge amount of iconic female characters, and this, which is very obviously a muscular dude, I can't help but think that it's a bit of a psyop, but I kind of feel that way. I kind of feel that way all the time.
Well, yeah, you can get a little tinfoil hat about the thing, but it's just such a. Unless the whole point was let's stir up a hornet's nest, let's get some attention, because that I wasn't talking about WizKids minis. I mean, some of them are great, some of them are I do want to talk to the people at WizKids who make the magic users, about casting spells, and the spell effect is half of a millimeter off the body, but not touching. So you do have to paint the body, but you can't. I want to find those people. I want to talk to them seriously in a back alley with a lead pipe. But
Yes.
but no one was like, there was any big conversation about. Oh, thank you very much, the James gang. Thank you for the super. Add
Excellent.
a woman and make her gay. In reference to the South Park. Add a woman. But no one was really talking about WizKids Mini, so now we are.
Yeah.
I guess that might be it.
Exactly. Get our eyes looking at this. And I will say that, like, the process of sculpting the mini and then making a master mold to crank out a few thousand of these, that's not like we woke up Monday and decided to do this and then told everybody on Tuesday we were doing this. Okay. This has been months in planning. I would say this probably goes back sometime into late 2023 that this was being kicked around in boardroom discussions and so on and et cetera. So this was not just a snap decision made by someone regardless. That's just my take on it. I've done a video about this. I talked about this on a couple of live streams. But again, if you're out there, if you're watching this post ex facto, whether you came here from Twitter, from YouTube, from Discord, whatever, if you think that's a woman, you're objectively wrong. And Larry Elmore says so. And that is literally the last thing I'm going to say on it.
Well, you got the artist saying it. It's sort of beyond interpretation at this point. Yeah. All right. Well, we fixed that part of the world. What else is tickling the ears of nerds this month?
Well, I started the week off actually saying something nice about Wizards of the Coast, which, in light of this, kind of makes me feel like perhaps I should have waited. It's always like, this hand is held out in friendship. Well, what's in this hand? And now we know it's an incorrect miniature. But
thank you, Vaughn.
So,
and I have to say, Red Sonja and the chainmail bikini, it's that old, I'm thankfully I was wearing my armor cartoon with the arrows sticking out of the chainmail bikini and the rest of her body completely. I always found those a little silly. It's like, whatever I thought of them as a teenage boy, logically, come on.
Yeah, well,
that's not gonna do you any good. But yes,
Red Sonja's bikini, Deja Thoris's absolutely no armor at all, and of course Vampirella's shoestring. It's never going to make any sense. We know what it's there for. Yeah.
Selling books,
exactly. Although I will point out, I thought this was kind of fun. Like the earliest Edgar Rice Burroughs books that came out in the 1920s, and featured Deja Thoris on the cover. Of course, she's in like a full body length toga, right? Yeah, you're not going to be a publisher back then and put something Frazetta-esque on your book cover. Your damn printing company would get burned down.
Well, I think it's funny that George Lucas caught flack from other directors and producers, and like you got Carrie Fisher in his movie, and she was a hot property sex symbol, and he puts her head to toe in just completely covered, right?
Yeah.
Until the third movie, obviously.
Until the third movie, when
he's like, "Oh yeah, I could do that." Yeah.
But they rolled out the Deja Thoris outfit for her in the third movie.
Yeah.
But according to Carrie, there was no underwear in space. That was George's rule on the first movie.
Oh, hence no line on her. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, there you go.
Sure, I'm sure that was the reason.
That's it. Yeah, we can fly spaceships between the planets, but we haven't conquered the concept of underwear yet. Sure. Why
not? Hey, what can I say? Those rebels, they got to sneak around, so they got to go commando.
Ouch.
I almost got him.
Ouch.
I saw that coming up and was like, timing. But no. I was Wizards of the Coast has apparently restructured how they're doing their sales. Basically, Wizards of the Coast, in my opinion, my view of this, and I've caught a little bit of flack for it, they've stopped microtransactions. D&D, look, I'm an old school guy, I get it, but I also know that the balance of players follow editions. People happily played first edition, and second came out and they happily play second. Third came out, they switched to third, they switched to fourth, they switched to fifth. They'll switch going on ahead. So with that said, it was kind of interesting to me when Wizards of the Coast came out and said, we're not selling our books piecemeal on D&D Beyond anymore. If you want a whole source book, you've got to buy a whole source book. And I think that's a good thing, because let's face it, as DMs, having somebody show up with like, hey, I paid $1.99 for this new character class that's new and awesome and, can sing and dance and do all the tricks. And just because I happen to have the money, that means I win. That means my character is more powerful. I can just throw my PayPal card at D&D Beyond and get a build that will beat all comers. And stopping that and saying, no, if you want the classes, the spells, the magic items, the settings, the races, blah, 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 you've got to buy a whole source book. And that has some people up in arms like, oh, Wizards, you're just trying to wring more money out of us. Maybe if the side effect is that it'll stop pay to win and microtransactions, that's a good thing. So that's another thing that went down.
I have the opposite take on this one. So I also detest microtransactions, but in the terms of video games, because when you're playing a video game, there is an objective way that the game works, right? And everybody's playing with the same rule set. So microtransactions are the way for your character to effectively become better or more effective at whatever the goal of the game is, just by paying more money as opposed to working for it through character development. In Dungeons and Dragons, I don't find that to be the case, because first of all, the DM sets the rules. Like, we're going to use this, we're not going to use that.
Right.
And D&D Beyond specifically, one of the nice features of it is if you join a campaign on D&D Beyond, anyone in the campaign can use your materials that you've bought. So some years back, I got one of their tiers. And so everyone who joins a campaign that I'm running can go through any of the books that I bought and use material from there. If someone in my campaign has a book, everybody else in the campaign can go through and use that material as well. So the thing is, most of the new books that Wizards have been putting out are absolute crap. And I liken this to CDs back in the 90s. You would have like 12 songs and 11 of them sucked. And one of them was that really cool song that everybody listened to all summer. All you wanted was that one song, right? But you had to pay for all the other crap. And then when music went digital, all of a sudden on iTunes, well, I don't have to pay $20 for the crap. I just paid 99 cents for the one thing I want. So if there's, this would be something that the player would have to talk to with the DM. Like, hey, I really want to use this new class. I think it looks super cool. There was a book a couple years ago, and it was all about dragons, and it was stupid. There was like no real playable content. It was just like, here's a ruby dragon. Here's a sapphire dragon. Here's like a rainbow sherbet flavored dragon. And the only cool thing out of it was there was a monk subclass that got dragon-like powers. So should somebody have to pay $25 or $35 just for that one monk subclass? When, if I as a DM, I can say, well, I need to have the reference for that class if it's going to be in my campaign, and I ain't going to pay for it. The player can just say, yeah, I'm not going to pay for the whole thing as well. I'm just going to pay whatever it was, $2 just for that one class. So to me, the microtransactions in video games is very different than in a tabletop role-playing game. So they're not quite the same thing because it doesn't necessarily create that inequity between people who use off-the-shelf stuff and people who want some bizarre subclass.
Yeah, I suppose it depends on how hard you want to hold the line as the DM to say, no, we're not using that. But I spent, $2 buying the thing. I don't care. If that's your, that's the ditch you die in as a DM. Because there are definitely classes that you can, that aren't part of, like I say, if you said I've got the core books, here we go, let's go.
Yep.
And someone purchases some other race class combo that is super powered, that just comes with all this extra stuff. You could, in that way, you could be actually purchasing your way toward victory by buying a character class that has that capacity. But again, as you say, though, the DM could say, well, no, I guess you wasted $2 or whatever they cost.
And I think with modern versions, DMing, well, especially with 5th edition, DMing is sort of a little bit different in the sense that, if you're playing with your friends, whatever, but if you say, okay, I want to play this kind of a game, it's really up to the DM to set like the base rules and the tempo for what's going on. It's like, okay, this is going to be a horror campaign. No goofy characters. You can't be a cat wearing a communist shirt. You can't. That
sounds like horror to me. I don't know.
Delver's Dungeon.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things like that I think in modern day gaming, and especially with the potential problems with players, you have to be able to say, like, look, this is a horror campaign. We're going to have scary stuff. If you don't like spiders or possible harm coming to other people, this might not be the game for you. So I think a modern DM would already have that sensibility where we're going to allow this, we're not going to allow that. And, and it's even the same thing with spells. If you're playing like a resource heavy campaign, there's spells like Goodberry or Create Food and Water that you just might want to nix from the campaign.
Right. Yeah, and it's harder. It's harder when they're in the core book, and it's sort of like, but these are the rules, and it's balanced. But if your people are going out to add things, it could be easier to just say, no, we're not doing that. Yeah, especially if you've made it clear at the beginning. We're
Yep.
going to use the core books. That's what we're going to use. We're not adding stuff from other sources.
Well, and this has been a problem from literally 1974. TSR started publishing new character class types in the strategic review. They started supplement 1 Greyhawk and supplement 2 Blackmore featured new classes and new rules options. And if you, the DM, had not gotten your paycheck yet, and you didn't have $5 to spend on Greyhawk or Blackmore, they hadn't arrived in the mail yet, you might not have had a chance to look over those things. And it's been something we fought, but that barrier was always there. And I respectfully disagree about the song analogy, Yang. And because whether you like or dislike a music CD, it really only has to do with you. I mean, you might have bought, it's 1990 and you bought D Light and you listen to Groove is in the Heart until you think the laser has almost erased the track off the disc, right? Anybody out there, anybody in the audience, without looking, name a single track off that album. I get it. Okay. But
I couldn't have identified who sang that song.
Yeah.
Trust you to have that at your fingertips.
Unless you're stuck working in a record store at that time of the 90s and you have to hear the damn thing over and over and over again, somebody else might come to enjoy it. But you are the only person that decision impacts, buying the one CD and saying, damn it, this is the only good song on here. You don't then bring that song to a friend's house and say, I'm going to play this every time we get together. I'm just going to show up at your house. I'm going to go over and I'm going to put it in your stereo and I'm going to hit play and I'm going to play it over and over and over again because I really like it. I know you like metal or rap or punk or country or whatever, but I like this and I'm just going to play this the whole night. And you might say, well, Bill, that analogy breaks down because a DM can say what they want to say. But the horror story exists because the horror story happens. Of player shows up with something that is unbalanced, badly tested, doesn't fit your campaign, doesn't fit your setting, doesn't fit your adventure, and they insist, but I spent money on this and it's official. It's official. You have to let me use it. Now, it was less of a problem literally up until the last couple of years. But now, with so much of gaming having moved online and so many people going through D&D Beyond, through D&D Beyond, if you're finding your DM or on Roll20, you can literally leave a Yelp review about a DM. Totally restrictive, not a good DM, and because you wouldn't let somebody play the damn thing. And as far as, well, this book costs $30. I mean, when I was a kid, if we wanted something at the gaming table, we don't go in on it.
Yeah.
Sure. Well,
we all threw in for a copy of Blood Royale from Games Workshop because we all wanted to play, and we threw in like $8 a piece, all 7 of us, and we got a great copy and use a leftover for pizza. But so the price thing don't really front me. I still think it's throwing credit cards at your GM until they cave, or conversely, throwing credit cards at your player. Where the hell did this monster come from? You said we're playing just like, we're playing in Mystara, and all you've done is update the rules. And now you've got this this thing that you say is from the Feywild, and it's half tiefling, half Tarrasque, and it's doing all this stuff. Well, I paid $2 for it. Too bad for you guys. You know.
Now that said, I do introduce monsters of my own creation all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So. I don't pay anything for them, but
and that's fine. That's another matter altogether. But again, I think it's a good move for game masters. I do not think Wizards of the Coast did it out of their good of the heart, the good of their hearts rather, and said, yes, we must do something to kind of balance the game a little bit. No, they said, why sell a book for $2.30 and we could just make you buy it for $30? That's
well,
exactly
I mean,
what they said.
That's my point. Is most of the stuff that they're releasing is just fluff with one or two cool things. It would be as if you had like a rancid cake that's just tastes like fat and sugar and has like a nice strawberry on top. Yeah, that strawberry is good, but I don't want to pay for the whole cake.
And yet you can't go into Walmart, because I think we know whose cakes you're talking about. you can't go into Walmart and just point at a cake in the freezer and say, give me that strawberry and that strawberry alone.
Right. And the issue is then I don't buy the cake and nobody makes money. And that's sort of my thing for Wizards here is the bigger problem for them is most of the campaign settings that they sell when they release a new edition is just retreads of old stuff. And then the new stuff that they have is just generally terrible with, one or two good things, which is indicative of a bigger problem. But at least you could make some money for the cool things rather than no money.
Yeah, but I feel like we'll make it up in numbers. I think that's a losing proposition, but I don't. I'll just be honest. I can't back that up. I am not financially smart enough to try and back that up. So again, I feel like it's something that if you're only going to sell 3 copies of the thing, but this will force you to sell 1, and 3 copies of the thing will net you $9, and 1 will net you 30. Well, I'd rather take the PR black eye and make $30 instead of 9. That's just me.
But it also, it depends, I suppose, a lot in terms of practical, how delicately balanced a rule system is. Mm-hmm. Can you just pull something out, drop something in that, there are rule systems that if you do that, you're really, really messing up the mechanics of the game, because you've thrown huge power to one corner or the other. You've dislocated things, and the DM can fix that. It's a lot of what DMs do, is keep things from becoming absurd, so that but that's also part of the game. Like you simply don't put a tribe of beholders. Do beholders live in tribes? But you don't put a room full of beholders in your first level adventure unless you want to just kill everybody, right? Just sensible stuff. But if you're buying in, you could in a delicate rule system, it could upset the sort of mechanics that you've got going on.
Sure. And that's kind of my bigger point with the whole the DM has to set the standard sort of thing, is because it's already been blown out of the water by Wizards of the Coast. There is no sort of balance whatsoever. And like even oh man, I just had a player in one of my test groups. He was playing is it Domain of the Grave Cleric or something? But whatever. It's every time a player's turn comes up, he gets some, like the cleric gets some kind of field around him that every time another player comes up, they get to roll. some like a D10 plus, their wisdom for temporary hit points. It's like, holy crap, that's like, you have to really supercharge those monsters to even cause any damage.
Yeah.
And it's every turn that those temporary hit points refill. So it's, and that's official. So the DM has to be like, yes, no, forget it. And that's part of the thing is in D&D Beyond, if you don't have access to that book, you can't see it. So that's why for me, I would rather pay like a small amount of money than a large amount of money. But to each their own.
Each their own.
Yeah, to each their own. Can I just jump in though and say something that has nothing to do with that? I just this the break out the balloons and party hats because Dungeon Minister has blown right across the lap line. Everybody, our spirit guide, our Guardo Camino, our road guard, if you will, for the Nerd Council of Doom here. Dungeon Minister, I'm pointing in the wrong direction. Dungeon Minister over here recently capped 2,000 subscribers. 2K.
We crossed the finish line. Well, it's not the finish line. I hope we crossed the line though, and I thank you to everyone. It really was cool. We were creeping up on it, and I thought, oh, I've got a while because it had been glacial for a bit, but then it started to rise. I'm like, oh, I better say we're getting close to 2,000 and make some sort of plan for what we do. And then we hit it and kept going past it. So it was just really cool. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And thanks to everyone who subbed. I wanted to share. Let's see what I'm going to do to celebrate. If you haven't caught it, in the game, we have there's a keep in our world that it was abandoned and it's been inhabited by various creatures. So this is the plan of it. I don't even remember what website I made this on, but I didn't have any graph paper when we first started, so I did it online. But the plan is, and it's underway now, is to make this in foam. So I've begun construction on it, and it is going to be over 3 feet by 3. Yeah, over 3 feet in each direction. It's going to be massive. It's going to be huge. So
Wow.
So that's underway, and I'm filming and sharing the progress on the way with it. So
that is fantastic, man, and I cannot wait to see some videos on the construction of this. Big terrain always impresses on the table. I love it when I get a chance to drag out Dwarven Forge or my own foam creations, which are few. I'm mostly pretty lazy in 3D print, but
you did the big the
inverted ziggurat from S2. Yes, that is. I'm looking at it right now. It's sitting on a shelf over there. That man. That was an effort and a half, I got to tell you, but it is nothing on the scale of what you're working on to celebrate 2,000 subscribers on your YouTube channel. And I just want to point something out here. You, sir, you have gone forward, holy symbol in one hand, mace in the other, and you have conquered this height in the old school tabletop role-playing game section of YouTube, which is pretty niche, right? If you put it out on a piece of blue and white non-repo graph paper, we're off over here on this corner of the map, and just one of the 10 by 10 squares. That's where all of us fit. And then like down in the busy sections where everybody looks are your React videos and your PewDiePie and all that stuff. So we're off up here. But you, sir, have carved out your 10 by 10 room entirely being positive. entirely being positive. And I salute you. You came onto YouTube with the idea of just telling wholesome stories about what you and your family do playing D&D, and you have brokered that into a convention which is coming up sooner than you think.
Yes, it is.
Padre, if you're sitting back going, I have a long time, and I don't think you are, but if you are, no, you don't.
No, I don't.
You've got Claricon 2 coming up. You've got 2,000 plus subscribers now, and you have done it just by dint of being positive. And that is an absolutely unique accomplishment. And I think everybody, creators, viewers, fans, followers, everybody needs to pause and thank this man for what he has done.
I bless you. Thank you. That's very kind of you. Part of it is I just don't have the energy for the fights, right? You know, I see the drama start up, and I bless the people who charge in there, you know, sword swinging, and they're gonna, but like, oh, good heavens, I don't have the. But the other thing is, like, I mean, you really can't go out there with the collar on and then rip people a new one. That's not a good idea.
Right. I mean, I got pretty salty last spring, when it seems like literally every day Wizards of the Coast was screwing something up.
Oh, they did. Oh, bless them. They could not buy themselves a break, but they were doing it to themselves, just shooting their feet like crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, Yang has accomplished the same thing. I mean, you've built a following on YouTube. I know that's not your prime directive, but likewise, you have stayed on the positive side, because you talk to comic artists and writers and so many great creators without the mudslinging. So it's always wonderful to see, and I'm glad that it's paid off in spades for you, Dungeon Minister. And now that you're getting that massive YouTube income, are you getting ready to step back and maybe house on the lake and a boat for you, and then one for the wife and kids? How is that working out for you?
Well, I have to tell you, first of all, thank you, Mercurius. I've YouTube a little while ago decided that you could only decide to monetize or not. When the channel was first monetized, you had the capacity to say, I would like either pre-roll or mid-roll or end-of-roll video ads, or what I always chose was just to have the image ads, which would be that other way, that way. How do I keep pointing the same way? That way, over there. My finger's disappearing. At the top of the recommended videos, there'd be a little static ad. And I chose that. It was the lowest amount of money, but it's the least. I really hate videos, ads before videos, and ads in the middle of videos drive me up the pole. So I said, I'm not going to do it. And I'm not getting the traffic that would like actually generate it in income. The only thing I ever monetize are live streams. So the super chats are a source. And actually, what I don't know is if people still see ads before my videos. I don't want to go to watch my own stuff, but that could just be YouTube saying, "Oh, don't give him the ad. This is his video." So I don't know if like the ads are still rolling and they're making all the money. I'm not getting any of it, and they're still there. But yeah, I just said no. I don't want to do that. Close-up magic. My finger disappears. So it's not. I mean, the YouTube. It's actually patrons are the largest source of income, and I got to tell you, it's allowed it to be sort of a part-time job, and when it first started, it was plowing it right back into the channel. It was new lights so that it looked a little better in the filming. It was mic and all this sort of other equipment. And actually, the computer that I'm using right now was I built up over a few months. I saved up and got this computer, which was great. Now, frankly, it's groceries because inflation. I don't know if it stayed crazy down in the U.S., but inflation in Canada is just
it's worse.
Yeah.
It's getting up there. But anyway, again, congratulations, Dungeon Minister. You absolutely, unquestionably deserve every iota of your success, sir.
Well, that's kind of I think because it's only good manners. We need to point over to the Delver though too, because I know it's turning into a love fest here, but when I first started, just dabbling into YouTube, I found Bill's channel pretty quick, and just the sort of it was like going over to someone's house and hanging out. It's just let's go over to Bill's place. Yeah, he's got some Funyuns. He's got the Fango pop. Let's go hang out at his place. And actually, you described it. You were talking about the release of the first Greyhawk, I think, the first Greyhawk booklet, and you talked about like you're at the mall with your friends and you're at the Orange Julius, and you're looking through this thing, and it had that sense of just hanging out and poring over the stuff and looking at the books. So thank you. And you're not too shy from in your own sub count, and I think you may be having a live convention before you know it.
No, dude, you will get. Stop it. You will fly well past me before the great underground overland gaming convention happens. So I'm not. Yeah. I am glad that I said 5,000 or 10,000 and not 6,000 though, because I'd be in trouble.
You would.
I think the real question is, Dungeon Minister, when you hit 5,000 subs, will you commit to making a keep as big as the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier?
How big was the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier? This one may actually be.
I think the flag, the USS flag.
Yeah, it was like 9 feet. Was you know what? This merits looking up. You gentlemen talk amongst yourselves. I will go out on the internet. Let's see.
I wanted that so bad, but I think I don't think it would even have fit in my bedroom. What I will do, and one of the reasons I'm making the keep is, someone had asked if I would do domain rules. Absolutely. One of the reasons I'm bothering to make this keep is that I suspect, I don't want to say this too loud because they're upstairs, I suspect that my players will decide to move into it at some point, because its ownership is a little up in the air at the moment, and I suspect they'll end up having their first stronghold be that, using the bones of that old keep, which is why I'm bothering to make it, because I can add a second floor to it and then a third floor. So it may not be laterally as big as USS Flag, but I would be able to, if we spread them out
vertically.
Yes.
It's practically big enough for them to live in at that scale.
Well, again, the housing market up here, that might just be an option.
Yeah.
I'll be crafting them.
That's an investment.
You're going to get a contract option on that for, I would say, $345. If you throw a kiddie pool behind it, you can probably go up a couple more bucks. You could probably just tip it over at about $520, I would say. Just make sure your curb appeal is good, and flock a piece of styrofoam to put in front of it.
Oh yeah, keep it mowed though. You got to keep it mowed.
Okay, I have the page on mental floss here. If you guys, if somebody wants to put that up, this is the USS Flag, a 7-foot long aircraft carrier. 7 feet. I'm 6'4". I could lay down on that, and aside from completely destroying it with my bolt, I would still have not hang off either end of it. 7 feet long.
So actually, Kabuki Kid says 7.5.
Well, I'm just
always adding a few inches.
They might say, let's see. The USS Flag went on sale for $99.97 to $139. Yep. So that would set you back about $400 today. Now, I actually knew someone, he's a great guy, Todd over at Gods and Monsters, but this is before he worked there. He and I talked about this, and the comic and toy shop that he worked at that time, they had a lot of vintage stuff, and they got one of these in as trade, and it is an impressive piece of plastic when it is completely assembled. And when I came in one day, it was gone, and I was like, I asked him, I said, wow, so I guess that went to a collector. And he said, yeah, but it's not the first one that they had. They had actually had one prior to that. And this did my heart good. Dude who bought it, because it was with the box. This was the early 2000s. But even with the box, I think he said it was like just a skosh south of $1,000. And the guy who bought it, he was like, joking to him about preserving that. And he said, oh no, this is going under the Christmas tree for my boys. And I was like, that is proper. That is
got a big tree.
That is good dad work. Yeah, no, that's, you stand the box up and you stick branches on it.
Actually, you just put the tree on the box. It's literally under the tree. There's a conversation in the chat happening about strongholds and when you get them. Some classes can get them at any. A fighter can build a stronghold at any point. Others have to be at name level before they can have a stronghold. You would not be made a lord or lady until you got to name level as a fighter, I don't think. So you have there's some things associated, but you can have a stronghold at any point. And if you conquer someone else's, if you drive the monsters out of a keep, for instance, you could take up residence there, right? You could live there. The local lord may object, may say, oh great, that keep is free, I've got a nobleman I want to put in there now, I got a knight I want to reward. But you wouldn't have any status to the land, you wouldn't have domain, but you could just move into a building. But yeah, fighters could do that at any they can build a stronghold at any level.
I just want to address something. Vaughn in the chat said AD&D is extremely light on castle construction. I don't know if you're being tongue-in-cheek with that, Vaughn. AD&D is not extremely light on castle construction and so on. I think you're having us on a bit there. Yeah, it did exactly. Shadow and Sun. It took a lot of math. It did take a lot of math. So, but anyway, regardless, congrats to the Dungeon Minister for that great achievement. So Yang, you've got now, if this doesn't fall in the realm of the nerdy stuff, that's fine. We can just not go there, but you've got a trip coming up.
Yes.
Okay.
No, I have to go to Japan a couple weeks for work.
Oh, you have to. Oh, you poor man.
Yeah.
Poor
I
man.
know.
Oh, I have to go travel the world.
Burns. Yeah. That's not as you say, that's work related. Now is that like
all expensible? Yes. It is a martial arts trip, effectively. So a bunch of people will be going to Japan to study some kung fu. So we've got a master from China. He's coming in. We're going to study with 2 masters in Japan. And we're going to have fun and eat convenience store sushi until we vomit.
And that could just be once.
And it's cheap. That's only like $2 worth of sushi. So it's good.
Yeah, there you go. So you're going with a bunch of 0-level mooks and you're coming back with some mid-level monks. I love it.
That's right. That's right.
There you go.
Yeah. This is something I was doing yearly, not to Japan, but doing these kind of trips yearly before COVID ruined everything for everyone. And now hopefully we're getting back to it. Some slight hiccups on the trip, but as long as we keep it down to 1 crisis a day, it'll be good.
Definitely.
Excellent.
So, but there may be some other kind of trips in the future people might want to keep their eyes out for.
Exactly. And we're not until the appropriate time.
No. No. Very good. Very
Hello,
good.
Jorge Uribe. Greetings to you, fellow nerd. Kabuki says, global pandemic, 1 star, not recommended. Yeah, I finally took it out for a test drive when I got back from Gary Con last year because one person tested positive and went to Gary Con. And myself and more than a few other people ended up getting, do not recommend. Do not recommend. I just get a hard pass on that. So thank you, random stranger who decided to give everyone the gift that kept on giving for like 2.5 weeks. But the less we discuss that, the better. So something I've always been interested in, this is completely non-nerdy. Dungeon Minister, do you guys do a lot of cookouts up there in the People's Republic of Canada?
Oh, yeah, eh? Oh, yeah, I got a grill there in the back. The missus just bought a bag of charcoal. We got it sitting there in the kitchen, ready to go outside. Oh, heck yeah.
Gotta not trip over your milk in a bag as you leave your igloo to cook some seal blubber.
The bagged milk. In most things, you could move from Wisconsin to Ontario and not notice it. You know, almost everything is the same. Maybe people in Canada don't like to hear that, but it's true. But
you are America's hat.
honestly, if you grab someone off the streets of Ontario, you grab them off the streets of Toronto, you know, knocked them out cold, took them to Milwaukee, woke them up again. Until they saw a mailbox, they wouldn't realize that there was any difference. It's the same, but except for the milk. Bags of milk. I cannot tell you how stupid an idea this is. It's the worst thing any civilization has ever done, and I can't deal with it. I gotta find a jug or something. That's fine to deal with.
So there you go, guys. Rinse out with hot soapy water, maybe just like an eyedropper of bleach, all of your plastic milk jugs, and ship those to Dungeon. They're feather light. I mean, you could put 50 in a dishwasher box and probably get it to them for less than $100. You'll feel right at home. So when it comes in a bag, like I am struggling. When I was a kid and I was like, milk in a bag, I was like, well, sure, you take it out of the store, you carry it in a bag. That makes perfect sense. You don't want to just walk. No, you got, it's like a rubber bladder full of milk.
Well, it's it. So you get there's a bag in which there are 3 sleeves of 3 bags of milk, and it's like what would be the comparable? I don't even know what the comparable material it would be, but you have a little pitcher at home that the sleeves fit into, and then you snip off one corner. And people told me, "Thank you, Flint Fireforge." That's what people told me. They said, "Thank you, Flint Fireforge."
Told you, "Thank you, Flint Fireforge." Unusual conversations.
Yeah. Thank you very much. People told me it was for environmental reasons. It's easier to. They're really hard to wash out because you got to hold this thing, and it's flexible. A jug, you just run water in it. Anyway. Yeah, you drop it and you snip it off. The problem, when you go to pour it, you've got a flexible thing sticking over the rim of an inflexible pitcher. And so milk gets stuck in that corner. And so when you lift it up, the corner droops. It pours milk all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And if you've got kids and they come down in the morning and they've got to get, when they're really little and they don't use the scissors yet, they come and wake you up. And when they're older and they do use the scissors, usually they're brilliant at it. It's fine because they've grown up doing it. But sometimes that hole is a pinhole. And you're going to fill your cereal. And it's like, this is taking 6 years. Or they cut half the thing off and, so it's a bit variable.
So if I understand you correctly, this is really a conspiracy between Big Milk and Big Paper Towel?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we've got the forest to make the paper towels with up there, so that's not a problem. Imperial Rambling says dribbling problems usually come with age. Just saying, yeah.
Well, I tell you, the problem is waking up at 6 a.m. to have to use the washroom. Thank you again, Flint Fireforge. Buy yourself a jug. I have thought. I've seriously thought, because the little thing that the sleeve goes into, it's the same size as the sleeve of milk, approximately. I have thought of just really washing it out, cutting the milk entirely open, and dumping it in there, and just having that open in the fridge. But inevitably, it'd get knocked over.
So,
Yeah.
so when your family comes to visit the U.S., your kids having been raised Canadian, are they astounded by like a carton of carton of milk when you fold it open?
No, they've seen those, because if you buy cream for your coffee,
Oh,
you're not buying a whole lot of it, and you can buy cartons of milk, but the cartons you can get, generally speaking, you don't fold the thing open. On the flat side, there's a screw cap,
Mhm.
so you're pouring it out of, I don't know. It's a weird country.
I mean, you guys think white gravy on French fries is good, so what are you gonna do?
That's Quebec. Don't pin that on Ontario.
Fair enough.
How much liquid does one milk sleeve hold? I haven't the foggiest idea, John. I wish I knew. Probably a liter or a pint or I don't know.
It's the communist measurement systems. A hectare. I don't know.
It's a lot of milk.
A microgram. It's nobody knows.
Yeah.
But yeah, cookout times are coming.
Yeah.
What's your favorite grilling out, Dungeon Minister?
My favorite is when I come home and my wife asks me if I would mind grilling out, like it's a great imposition. You say, do I mind going to the back deck with a drink and just chilling out for half an hour? Oh, if I have to. Yes. I don't know if women understand how much men like to grill. I don't know if they understand the passion for grilling meat. I don't know if that's commonly understood. But
stand over fire and metal and make meat so you can eat it. Oh no.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, any day.
Yeah.
How about you guys? What are you grilling?
Yay. What's up?
Oh, me? Well, recently my wife found a really good chicken recipe. I don't know if you guys have ever had Hawaiian chicken.
Yeah, I probably.
Yeah. It's like a little bit sweet, a little bit Asian-y, gingery. So I've been grilling that. But one of these days when I have time, I'm going to do pulled pork again. But that takes like 15 hours. So
yeah,
it's good. Low and slow, baby.
Oh, yeah. That's a commitment. That's the whole day.
Yeah. I'm going to get people angry at me when I say this, but I can do pulled pork in like an hour. I have an instant pot. And yeah,
you don't get that great smoke ring on there that way.
No, I don't. I fully admit that's not proper pulled. It is pulled pork in texture. The flavor is completely different, and I vastly prefer if somebody's going to smoke it. But I just if it's Saturday evening and I want pulled pork on Sunday, yeah, I'm not digging a hole in the yard and packing it with hot coals and covering it with peat. I'm not doing that. Jorge points out that the grilling tradition dates back to caveman times, as shown in the documentary The Flintstones. Very true. But yeah, no, I love just whatever whatever I can cook on the grill is good. I just like the taste.
Definitely. It's very stuff is different when it's fire kissed.
Yeah,
if you will.
Yeah, no, it really is. My daughter grilled a little bit of chicken to have like a chicken lemon pasta. I don't mean grilled like took outside. I just, she got a little bit of doneness on the skin of the chicken in the pan there, and oh my god, it was good. It just had that slight smokiness to it, and it was perfect. We had that with some homemade Alfredo that she had done and some pasta. It was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
Lovely.
Kabuki says her boyfriend cooks nothing, so she ends up cooking everything. You think he could cook toast?
Okay.
Forrest Kabuki,
Well,
mic him roundly.
My
All right.
my father-in-law made hot pockets once, and it shocked
Yes.
my wife.
If I may, let me give the ladies in the audience a tip. The Dungeon Delver was absolutely correct, and the Dungeon Minister, that men love cooking with fire. We don't want a pan between our food and the fire, but if you're cooking directly on fire, men love that crap. So if you want your boyfriend to start cooking stuff, you need to like get him to, oh, honey, I really wish we had some good steaks. Can you grill us up some steaks? Oh, well, yes, I can. I mean,
Yep.
And give him a beer when he's going out. This guy will cook for you every day, at least in the summer when there's no snow.
Oh, no, snow doesn't matter. Oh, go in the snow, it melts the snow.
Yeah, I don't want to stand out there in a
Right up.
snowstorm. I'm close to Canada, but I'm not Canadian.
Happy to be out there in a snowstorm.
There's a great comedy drama. It's one of the underrated pictures from the 1970s, which was one of the best eras for cinema. Though it's called The Last Detail, and it's got Jack Nicholson in it, and he and his fellow sailor are taking Randy Quaid, a very young Randy Quaid, has committed a crime in the Navy, and he's being transported up the U.S. coast to start his sentence, to begin his sentence. And when Nicholson and his partner find out how young this guy is and all the things he hasn't done, and that he's going to be in prison, this movie came out in 76 or 77, so he's literally going to be in prison until like 1991. They're like, well, our detail is open. We can take as long as we want to take this guy. So one of the things on his list was he never went to a cookout. It's the dead of winter. So they go to a convenience store, buy beer, charcoal, buns, hot dogs, condiments, and they go to some city park and knock all the snow off of one of those permanent grills, and are standing there freezing their asses off, cooking hot dogs over oh no, they forgot the buns. Yeah, they forgot to get buns, so they're like dipping the hot dogs in the ketchup and the mustard to enjoy them. But it's a fun little film. But the point that I'm making is it shows what length we men will go to have a cookout.
Kabuki's revealing that in her condo building, they don't allow grills, only electric grills. That's heresy.
That's from the man who knows. That's heresy.
That is heresy.
Yeah.
You need to tell your condo board they will be in trouble with the church.
Yeah. We're coming for you. Do an exorcism.
Yeah. Can we get a dungeon minister bull written for that? Can you just issue a dungeon minister bull?
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, fire was considered a way to purify and to send things up to heaven. Therefore, grilling meat pleases God.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unquestionably.
It's part of your religion. Just go First Amendment on them.
There you go.
So, Yang, I was looking at our notes. You had a question from the world of comic books.
Well, I did. I just posted a link in the private chat. So the comic book writer Alan Moore, most famous for writing Watchmen, V for Vendetta, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, some other questionable in 2024 graphic novels. But somebody got him on video again, talking about what's wrong with the comic book industry. And his opinion was he hates graphic novels because they're just 12 issues of She-Hulk in there, even though that's not a graphic novel. And he had this thesis that people don't read comics today because comics stayed the same. Like, there's no path for adults to really read comics. Back in the day, you were sort of 13 to 15 years old, and then that was it. Now, in the 80s, there were some comics, some that Alan Moore wrote. DC had its Vertigo line that were aimed at more adult themes. Let's say push the age into the 20s. And I'm kind of wondering, is that one of the problems with this industry in at least in North America? Because if you go to Japan, you will find that adults of all ages read manga over there, their comic books. And one of the reasons I think is you can get more mature books, books that are, I mean, some of them are really even for 40-year-olds. So what is it that got you guys sort of out of the habit of reading comic books, and what would it take to draw you back in?
I read. I never was a huge comic book guy. I for a while I picked up a few titles. I read Thor, Daredevil, Black Panther, Power Pack, and that was it. I'm pretty sure. Sometimes someone would appear from another series in one of those, and I might go and pick up a couple issues of that character's main book. But generally, and which is actually how I got it. I think I picked up Thor, and Daredevil showed up or something, and so I branched off into that. But yeah, I quit. I just went off to university and didn't have as much money anymore. I don't know. I don't know, but I did. Yeah, I was never deep into it to start with, so it wasn't like I was a major life change or anything. And I did read Watchmen when it because it was a little geared a little edgier. Later on, like in my 20s. Yeah. So there wasn't any one big thing for me that changed it. It just stopped.
What would it take to get you back into them?
Yeah, it would have to be a level of artwork that you don't generally see in comics. It would have to be a level of story that, as you say, is just not really in comics. I don't know that I would. To be honest. I wouldn't anticipate it. It would shock me if I did, but never say never, right? So
that's true. I don't know. How about you, Dungeon Delver?
So there's a very exact, precise, specific point at which I stopped reading comics. I got into comics in the mid 1980s with X-Men 173.
Nice.
It was such a great run. It was mid-late Claremont. And it was just such a fantastic time. And I only read X-Men because X-Men, by and large, were like the whole thing with costumed superheroes was it kind of a bit of a turnoff to it. It's, well, like, why? It's like, why go out in skin tight Lycra that's so tight you can tell what religion the person wearing it is, right?
Do you really want that question answered? No.
Yeah. So I avoided Superman and Batman. I thought they were silly. I liked Spider-Man conceptually. Like, I grew up watching Spider-Man cartoons when I was a kid, and I liked Spider-Man. But I always felt like there was just where can I find for an entry point here? And finally, what drew me in was X-Men 173. And I absolutely loved that cover, and I looked through it at 7-Eleven, and I didn't realize that comics could be that good. That they could tell stories that compelling that weren't, you know, Biff, pow, Zappo, I'll get you, Caped Crusader, and, you know, then you go buy another issue. And the X-Men really drew me in. And I started buying back issues from the long boxes. You know, I was going back as I was moving forward, and then X-Men started to explode in popularity in the mid-late 80s, and Marvel started releasing X-Men Classic. They started at X-Men Annual 1. And so I was like, this is heavenly. I can read the old stuff, and as I go forward, it's brilliant move on their part, really. You know, I got the handbook to the Marvel Universe, and Secret Wars came out, the original Secret Wars with the Beyonder. And those kind of slightly started to pull me in other directions. And I always wanted to start a comic at its inception, like a good comic. And when West Coast Avengers came out, I had to have that, you know, man, I'm going to start at the beginning with West Coast Avengers. And so, you know, I was starting to get into Avengers lore a lot. And the big thing that was coming was this huge story arc that Marvel was promoting called Marvel's Mutant Massacre. Everything was all the stuff that they had hinted at with the excellent God Loves Man Kills graphic novel for the X-Men, X-Men Days of Future Past, all the things that they'd been hinting at with the anti-mutant sentiment that was going to be building up the world was going to come to a head in this glorious storyline. And I was like, okay, cool. This is going to be cool. I'll read the X-Men comics, and this will be this will be fantastic. And they literally gave you a flowcharted shopping list of all the books you had to buy to keep up with the Marvel Mutant Massacre storyline. And I was like, you guys aren't trying to tell me a story. You just want all of my money.
Yeah. Yeah, the sort of crossover stuff was cool in one way, like this all happens in the same world, and then here's, you know, this character showing up in that. But then it did become like, oh, and the Marvel movies too. You want to watch the latest Marvel movie or the latest TV show? You've got 18 movies to catch up on and 500 hours of TV show. And
they prototyped that in the comic books. And when I realized all they were interested in doing was just extracting as much money from me as possible, that in, I think it was 88, any Marvel fans out there want to check me, when the Marvel Mutant Massacre went down, I just said no.
It was 86.
86, yeah. That was when I stopped. Now I picked up in the early 90s. I started reading manga in the early 90s, and I fell in love with it. And then I got pulled into watching anime. You know, we all grew up watching Speed Racer, but you know, I got into what was it, Bubblegum Crisis, and a friend got me a laser disc of Castle of Cagliostro, and you know, so I just kind of left comics behind because Marvel didn't seem interested in telling good stories anymore. They did seem interested in pumping as much of my cash out of my wallet as quickly as they could across a broad base. So that's what killed it for me. Now, what it would take for me to get back into it again would be basically someone who isn't Disney going into the Marvel offices and slapping the big red button and saying, guess what, kids? It's 1984. Everything that's happened didn't. We're waking up with this issue of X-Men, or we're starting it over again. We're not doing this variant and Earth 616, no Earth 5382, no Earth 111, and on it. We're stopping that. It is the X-Men, the Avengers, the Incredible Hulk, Spider-Man, She-Hulk, Fantastic Four. Go. That's it. That's what it would take. literally a year zero. We're not doing, 8 million crossover universe stories. That's what it would take. So
Interesting. And I'm kind of wondering this because in a lot of ways American comics are way on the slide. I think they make up something like 6% of North American sales right now. And it kind of had me wondering about the pulps too, because to me, pulps and novels are very different things. Pulps came out, the pulp magazines would come out on a regular basis, monthly, bi-weekly, every other month, whatever it was. And, similar distribution to what I guess you call mainstream comics are. So, do you think that there's an overall shift away from these smaller paged but coming out semi-regularly forms of entertainment, or are people more into like once a year we'll get a season of XYZ TV show, or once every 1 to 2 years we'll get a movie? Is it just like going away from that kind of entertainment, or?
Yeah, there's a feeling that U.S. culture goes into things with both feet and does it bigger, louder, than anyone else. And then, we're done with that now. On to something else, So, yeah, I can see it just like we've done that, and it'll be because like cowboy westerns, right?
Mhm.
There was a whole period where every third movie was a western, and then they
Sure.
just weren't anymore. And
Mhm.
and then it was all cop dramas, and then they just weren't anymore, right? So I can see that as just, yeah, we've done it so hard, so fast, that what's left to do, right? And in 20 years someone will say, well, there's this, we could try that, and then it might have a resurgence. Yeah, but someone earlier was talking about the politics injected into it. That's probably part of it. People just like comic books, American comic books are froth. They're light, and then to package inside of that this bitter pill, right? It's like, I just don't want to. Can there be something where we just have fun still? So that's probably part of it.
Well, I ran athwart someone on Twitter. I know someone was coming at me on Twitter. That's a huge shocking thing, because my stance when I post on Twitter and when I talk about tabletop RPGs is first edition AD&D only, no politics. And somebody just came at me hammer and tongs and said, no, all things are political, and even your desire to escape politics is a political maneuver because blah blah blah. And they started trying to psychoanalyze Dave and Gary and old white men from the Midwest and etc. I just wanted to be left alone to play Dungeons and Dragons. I just wanted to be left alone to read comic books. And if these people don't think that there's a sickness in comics that that started in 2014, you can put a pin in the map and watch the crack. Then they're being deliberately blind. But it started then. Let me tell you, Yang, you probably know these numbers better than I do, but am I or am I not wrong in saying that an average mid DC or Marvel run in the 80s would shift 500,000 books?
I don't think it was ever 500,000, but I don't think so. But because X-Men, when they were really humming, they were close to about 300,000.
Okay.
That's not counting like X-Men #1, which shipped over 1 million.
Right.
But I do know that the cancel number was 65,000. If your book didn't ship over 65,000, it for sure would be canceled.
If a modern title does 50 today, they will crack open the champagne and call you an unqualified success.
Absolutely.
50 was what, like Wendy and Richard Panay when they, I think it's Panay, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Wendy and Richard Panay, ElfQuest. And they started Warp Graphics that launched a very brief comic run of Robert Asprin's Myth Inc. They did some other. Wendy and Richard Panay could shift 50,000 issues of ElfQuest, no problem. ElfQuest, the indie comic, was so popular that John Byrne drew Kitty Pryde wearing an ElfQuest t-shirt at one point in an issue of X-Men. And they could shift enough books to make that much of a nudge, an independent comic. Now, if anyone says to you, listeners, no, comic books are fine. The comic book sales are fine. Look at these numbers. 95% of that is manga. And it doesn't belong to comic books. It is, yes, IDW is distributing it. Yes, this company, that company is distributing. It's all coming from Japan. I'm not a huge weeb, but I will tell you straight up, yes, comic books are sick to the point of dying right now. And imagine walking in to Jim Shooter's office in 1982 and saying, Mr. Shooter, I got a book I can guarantee is going to shift 45,000 issues. He might very politely tell you that you could take that to Warp Graphics, or you could take that to Tundra Press or somebody like that. But Marvel's not gonna touch that. That's nice, kid. Good for you. What do you mimeograph that and mail that to fans? And now it's just the standard. And no, I'm sorry, it's not because, well, everything is off and the whole industry is depressed because in 2014 the industry got overrun and overtaken by people who decided that scolding people like me and running people like me out of the fandom was more important than telling good stories. And that's why we are where we are now. Now, as far as Alan Moore's opinion of graphic novels, I don't know what Alan Moore thinks about anything. And I couldn't tell you. It's like, with all respect to Alan Moore, it is kind of like trying to deal with someone with dementia. I can't even, but I will tell him his opinion on graphic novels. He's conflating anthologies with graphic novels. When you say graphic novel to me, I think of God Loves Man Kills. I think of Starjammer's graphic novel that Marvel did. All those great graphic novels. An anthology set is literally just a hardback with a year's run of She-Hulk or Spider-Man or whatever. And it's kind of a convenient way to catch up on storylines.
Yeah. I mean, I have some sympathy for Alan Moore. He was supposed to get the rights back to Watchmen and V for Vendetta, but DC tricked him because his contract said something like, when it goes out of print, the rights go back to him. Well, DC has put it in print by making graphic novels out of them ever since the 80s. So it will never go out of print and he will never get those rights back. So I can understand why he's bitter about graphic novels. But speaking of Jim Shooter, I've got a buddy who has a YouTube channel called John's Long Box. Anybody who wants to see a great interview with Jim Shooter, he had him on a couple of weeks ago. Fantastic.
I would love to. John's Long Box. I'm going to make a note of that right now because that sounds amazing.
I'm going to do John's Long Box. So, don't go there now.
After we're done.
I'm just sticking a mark here.
There in the chat is I put in the chat the link to that channel.
A
You can
conversation with
right click.
Yes, a conversation with Jim Shooter. An interview with Jim Shooter should have more than 748 views. So I can't wait to check that out.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
Kabuki. He's been pretty. Jim Shooter's been pretty low key. It's hard to say. It's hard to know he's still with us. Sorry, Dungeon Delver. What were you saying?
No, I was just saying. Mac Thompson was saying John's Long Box. It's a comic book thing. You chromo.
Well, Mac's been circling around the subject for a little while due to a typo earlier.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, you're off the hook, bud. Hypercam says he's not 100% sure what makes a graphic novel a graphic novel. Yeah, I mean, for me, a graphic novel was a self-contained story in a magazine-sized book, but it featured mainline or perhaps not mainline characters. Because Marvel's graphic novel run had some stuff in it that I never saw before and I never saw after. But again, you had God Loves Man Kills, you had some Spider-Man stories, you had some Avengers stories and so on in their great run of graphic novels in the 80s. So, it could be kind of a place like I don't think they would have put the God Loves Man Kills storyline in there. This is going on a spinning rack at the Quick Mart. Yeah, kind of stuff. But at the same time, it wasn't quite so edgy as we need to put this in Marvel's Epic Illustrated, which was a fantastic magazine, by the way. If you guys, it's inexpensive. You can get it for right around cover price, adjusted for inflation. Individual issues on eBay. Marvel's Epic Illustrated, fantastic magazine. But yeah, that was always my assumption of graphic novels. But what's the definition for you, Yang?
Well, there is a technical definition. A floppy is a standard comic book issue. It was on newsprint until the 90s. Now it's on finer paper, so they could increase the price. Usually about 22 pages long. A graphic novel is a self-contained story, which may or may not fit in with other things, but it should be self-contained, generally square bound, not saddle stitched or stapled in there as we would normally see comics. And it's generally, depending on what time frame you're looking at, it's either over 48 or over 60 pages of content. And then there's a trade paperback, which is usually collected issues of a comic that either just in order or they have some theme. And those are sort of just reprints of previous floppies all pushed together into book form.
And I think that seems to me what Alan Moore is talking about. He's not talking about graphic novels. He's talking about TVBs.
Yeah, exactly.
And given what's happened to him with regard to V for Vendetta and Watchmen, I can understand his ire at TPBs.
Yeah.
I mean,
Kabuki Kid here is bringing up Mouse, which was a brutal story, but that's graphic novel, right? That's
exactly.
That's not a collection of things. Bob Hastings is asking if anyone remembers the old classic comics, and I want to know from Bob: is that a comic book publisher, or are you just talking about back in the day? You capitalized Classic Comics, so it seems to be the name of a publisher of a
Classic Comics was a comic book company that took, generally speaking, public domain stories. A Tale of Two Cities, Romeo and Juliet, and they would publish them in comic book format. But despite the fact being illustrated and laid out like a comic book, they got note for note. The dialogue was kept intact. So it was like a comic book tie-in of a classic novel. So,
Yeah, in a lot of ways, those were the cliff notes before there were cliff notes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like you could, depending on how flexible your teacher was or was not, you could read a classic comic and get everything you would need to write a theme that was a couple of pages long. So, I don't think you could do it at the college level, but
I think I did see one or two of those back in the day. I mean, because I from a young age I was reading classic literature, so I think I do remember those. They were pretty cool. I liked them.
I believe they also had a line of Bible comics too.
Oh,
I'm sure someone has.
Well, there were tons.
There was one. There's a company out of Wisconsin. Is it Voyage Comics or Voyager Comics? They do. They're in that line, but they actually did a pretty good recent run of. I'm trying to see if it's Voyage Comics. I think. Oh yeah, Voyage. They did a pretty decent story a while ago about a hunt for a sword, the shards of a sword that have been scattered across all of these monasteries dedicated to Saint Michael. And I mean, it was as and I say this as a member of the tribe, as Christian themed entertainment generally is. It was like a step or two down from in terms of production level, but it was a good story. It was a fun story. There you go.
Yeah,
that's
classic.
Kind of classic.
Yep.
Yeah. But they were okay. It was okay. I actually bought the series for the boys because they don't do like superheroes. We were actually talking today. They're trying to figure out. Okay, so what does Iron Man about? What does he do? Who would win, Batman or Spider-Man? And they're feeling their way through because they talk to other boys their age and they have no idea what they're talking about. So, Bible and manga doesn't sound right.
Yeah,
Jesus with huge eyes.
The Action Bible. I want to look that up, and now I don't. I'm like, I've been pulling up clips of stuff and sharing them. I leave it to my fellow council members. Do we want to see if there is Bible manga out there?
I'm sure there has to be.
There must be.
I'm not asking if it exists. I'm asking if we want to see it.
I'm not so sure about that.
I will pull up an image that Dungeon Minister can see. I will let him judge this. And let's see. If he wants to see this, you guys got to super chat him. A 20 super chatter. You can Google this yourself.
Oh, this is the other thing, not a comic book, but in a similar vein and terribly irreverent. I mean, the maker of it was intending to slam the Bible, but then a whole bunch of Christian groups were like, "Oh, this is great!" And they're like, "Oh,
yeah."
So he wrote it. He made money on it, so he was perfectly happy making money on it. But let's see.
All right, so let me see here. No, that's not what I'm looking for. Hang on a second. Because you say manga Bible, and it's like, oh, do you mean like drawn? Or do you mean let's see. All right, here is a page, and let me zoom that in. And I will share that, and Dungeon Minister will be the final arbiter of whether or not we're going to see that on the channel. And it's going to cost you guys a super. So share screen. And I will promise you, it's not the first thing you're going to find if you just Google manga Bible. So
Okay, well there it sits, and I can roughly make it out. Okay, well, the Delver has spoken. I will not hit the click without a super.
That's right. Somebody's got to throw a super. You got to see it.
I will say the Brick Testament. We also have Brick Shakespeare, which is pretty good, and he's meticulous in following the the letter of Scripture. Sometimes to the again, he's trying to make fun, right? So sometimes he follows it to the letter where anyone reading would know, well, clearly this is metaphor, clearly this is hyperbole, but there are some awkward things done with Lego figures. That's probably the best way to put it.
Awkward or awful?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know. I was hoping you would correct me and come back and say that no, Bill, awkward. I didn't say awful.
Oh, there we go. Mark Morrison is willing to. Thank you, Mark. Mark Morrison is willing to take the plunge to see what this is. So we're all finding out together. And if you need bleach for your eyes afterward,
it's not that. It's quite lovely.
Okay, there we are.
It's literal. It is an illustrated Bible, but it just happens to be done in a manga style.
Yes.
And this is from Tyndale Publishing, and it says let's see, the Tyndale Publishing was founded because Ken Taylor wanted to help people understand the Bible in simple ways. The Living Bible evolved into the NLT through Tyndale's efforts to combine simplicity with accuracy. With a similar combination of goals, the Manga Bible inserts sections of comic book style storytelling into a regular NLT Bible. Look carefully at the top right and bottom left corners of this image. It's actually a New Living Testament Bible, and the author says they bought one of these for my kids a year ago, and we love it. I'll put if anybody's interested in reading up more on that, I'll stick this in the private chat. And you, Dungeon Minister, you can decide to share that link or not.
All right.
But there you go.
There it is.
There you go.
Meanwhile, there's also in a non-manga forum, the Action Bible. Yeah, that one was. That one, yes, who knew Middle Easterners looked Asian? Yeah, that was the Action Bible. Was something that I know our deacon back when we had a deacon, he moved north during the pandemic and never came back. But he was big on that one. So there's, oh my, that's quite a. They've done it before. So.
Well, there you go. Comics of all kinds.
Yes, indeed. All right. Throwing that. If anyone wanted to look at what Bill sent me the link to, there you go. Yeah, the Bible stories for kids books. A lot of them tend to, the one that Bill shared, the Action Bible, are cut above. A lot of them. Remember that Highlights. It was a magazine, I think. And it was,
I remember Highlights magazine. Yeah. Loved Highlights magazine, man.
Yeah, that was always the dentist's office for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Take your mind off what was about to happen.
Yeah, it was always kind of in that range of quality, but some of them are a little juicier. They seem a little more oomph to them.
Yeah.
Well, folks.
Go ahead.
We are at an hour and change. I don't even know where the clock went anymore. An hour 43. So we're approaching the time when I've got to start preparing a meal here.
Same.
But, yeah.
Hit the grill.
Unfortunately, not grilling. Not today. Unfortunately, no.
There's a polar bear outside his igloo. He can't go grill. Just throw the milk bags at him, Padre.
That's what they want. That's what they want. So, before we go, though, I want to encourage everyone to subscribe, if you're not, to these two gentlemen's channels. I am going to. I'm supposed to put the links to you guys in the description. You know what I will do after this? I will get your links in the description. I can go grab some now, though. Subscribe to these fine gentlemen if you are not already, and check them out. They do fabulous stuff. So there in the chat is Yan, and
well, I do stuff. I leave the fabulousness of it up to my audience to decide.
It is lovely. You've got there is the Delver, and Flint Fireford says he is subbed to all the peeps, which is fabulous.
Woohoo!
Thank you, Flint.
And yes, so there you go. If you're not, do so, and if you are, God bless you.
Indeed.
Any final words, fellow nerds?
We'll
Squeegee.
see you guys in June, and I can't promise that we'll have any liturgical comic book stuff to discuss, but I think will we be over at your place, Yang, in June? I think
we will be, yeah.
Yes, we'll be over at Yang's place in June. I want to see everybody there. I want to see just as big a crowd over at Yang's place, and show up with your subscription button clicking fingers ready if you haven't already, and you don't between now and then. So I'm looking forward to that. I hopefully we'll hear some fun tales of the land of the rising sun when you get back.
Yes.
We'll see. Hopefully I'm going to have a chance to do some nerd stuff over there. Check out some manga cafes. I want to see, if I have time, see about any gaming shops while I'm there.
Interesting.
Fabulous.
Get a chance to pilot a Gundam? Take it.
Definitely. It's on my list.
Good.
There is a place where you can drive them, actually.
Don't do that. Don't give me hope.
There's a place, I think it might be in Hokkaido, where a guy was rich and retired early, and he built Gundams in a barn that you can rent out. They're not as big as like they would be in the shows and in the manga, but they're 15 feet at least, and you can drive them around his barn, and he's got big paintball guns on him.
Oh man, oh, be still my heart. That sounds awesome.
I was asked when Claricon is. The info's on the page right now. I am going to be making the registration page link available soon, as in like either later tonight or tomorrow, I think. I'm hoping to. I'd like to associate that with a nice rollout kind of video. So maybe tomorrow, maybe soon, but it's going to be live pretty quick. But the con is happening in late October, the 25th, the 27th, in
Excellent.
beautiful downtown Glen Williams, Ontario.
Get your sled dogs warmed up.
All right. Well then, it's not Dark Knight. It's not in the States. It's in Canada. It's in Ontario. So if you go to the States, you'll be in the wrong country.
It's America's hat. We just let them think they're their own country.
Okay, Canada shoes. And I don't even want to say what relationship Florida has to the rest of the United States, given the shape of the state. So we'll just
It's
leave it at
400 miles long and proud.
All right, everyone, have a good rest of your day, your evening, your morning, your night, depending on where you are. Bye.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.